It's Monday night, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk, and I am New Jersey's premier and now 7-time award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, and certainly the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Certainly, as we're wrapping up the month of January, election season is well underway. Candidates, elected officials, journalists, activists, you name it, we're going to be talking about it here on the program. I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so this on the 30th of January in the year 2023. Always remember, ladies and gentlemen, to check out all of our amazing content on all of our social media platforms. Make sure you like Real Talk with Fernando Uribe and Jersey First on Facebook. Follow me on both Instagram and Twitter at the Fernando Zone. Make sure you subscribe to Jersey First on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify or SoundCloud. Take Jersey First with you, whether you're still working off those, stubborn pounds from the holiday season, walking your dog, taking a run, whatever it is you're doing, folks. Download the episodes, take them with you, and of course, listen to Jersey First wherever you go each and every day. And I cannot say enough, ladies and gentlemen, about how proud I am to be on the Jersey First team. Yes, of course, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe leading the way, of course, with my exceptional teammates, Elizabeth Nader, the host of the Nader Narrative, of course, Stephen Rombolo, and AJ Malillo, certainly my amazing teammates with their show, Bridging the Gap, which you can check out every single week on Jersey First TV, as well as the Nader Narrative, and of course, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe live every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, of course, on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on LinkedIn, as well as Instagram, and also on Twitter, folks, as well as the Jersey First YouTube page. Without you, ladies and gentlemen, again, this show would not be possible because, hey, the traffic is organic. The traffic is genuine. No paid ads here. We don't got to pay to boost my traffic, folks, like other news sites and journalists have to. This is all organic, folks. It's as organic as all that good stuff you buy at Whole Foods, ladies and gentlemen. So, yes, organic traffic is what you can come to expect here on the show. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 p.m. on Monday night. So that means that, obviously, all the haters are coming to their smartphones, their tablets, their computers, whatever it is, folks, wherever they are, wherever they are, whenever they are, they're tuning in to Real Talk because the haters just cannot help themselves. And of course, hey, without them, a lot of the traffic wouldn't be possible because you just can't help yourselves. Once again, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so here. It is an election season, ladies and gentlemen. I'll have a lot to say about this week's swing and a miss in New Jersey media. You definitely don't want to miss out on that one. Trust me, I have a lot to say about it. But first, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as I mentioned, it is election season, and I'm talking to candidates all throughout the state of New Jersey, and this week is no exception. He's a good friend of mine. He's a guy who ran in 2021, and he's looking to unseat State Senate President Nicholas Scutari in the 22nd Legislative District. He's my good friend and yours, folks, the distinguished William Michelson joins us here on Real Talk. William, how are you?
Great. Thank you very much for having me again.
I appreciate that. And folks, again, if you're not familiar with sort of the makeup of the 22nd Legislative District, let me just give you some info here. Obviously, after redistricting, a little bit changed throughout the state in all 40 legislative districts. But here's pretty much what we know thus far about LD 22. It certainly is comprised of a lot of municipalities in Middlesex County, of course, including Dunellen and Middlesex, along with Somerset County, which includes Greenbrook Township and North Plainfield, and of course, in Union County, a plethora of municipalities, which include Clark, Fanwood, Linden, Plainfield, Rahway, Scotch Plains, and Winfield Township. Also, ladies and gentlemen, again, sort of a breakdown here in the district itself of registered voters thus far. It does lean heavily Democratic with 49.4 registered Democrats, with about 15.8% of registered Republicans. But a big gap, of course, is always the independent vote, and that's at 33.4%. That might change, give or take, folks, after redistricting, obviously after the census. But you know what? William made inroads in 2021 when we're talking about numbers like the fact that he got over 20,000 votes. Now, we know that Nicholas Scutari got over 32,000 votes, But William Michelson got over 20,000 votes, folks. That's 38.6% of the vote, up 5.8% from the previous candidate during the previous election cycle. So, William, a lot to build on from 2021. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I have to correct you, though, about some of the towns because we got redistricted. They took away Greenbrook, Middlesex, and Dunellen, so I don't have any of Middlesex County anymore.
Okay.
They gave me, at the other end, they gave me Cranford and Roselle Park.
Okay. Two very, very nice towns. Yeah, sure.
So it's 9 towns in Union County, and the only one elsewhere is North Plainfield, which is Somerset County.
Okay. And again, it's an election year, though, William. And what's interesting is that, and I know Republicans certainly, and again, I don't want to, it seems like people say, oh, you're bashing Republicans too much. I'm not. I'm just being intellectually honest on this program. But yes, Republicans have some gains to brag about in 21, certainly getting 9 new assemblywomen, Republican assemblywomen into the state assembly. Certainly Ed Durr with perhaps the biggest upset in the last 20 years legislatively, upsetting then Senate President Steve Sweeney down in LD3. Certainly last year during the congressional races, I would argue Republicans should have done better nationally and more so in New Jersey. We should have picked up, I think, 3 congressional districts. We only picked up 1. We did retain 2. Again, a lot to celebrate, not too much to brag about, but I think Republicans have a chance to chip into that lead, though, William, because right now in the state assembly, we're looking at a majority of only 46 to 34, and in the state senate, it's 24 to 16. So Republicans have a chance in 2023 and 2025 to shave off those leads and maybe get into majority. How do you plan on doing that?
I have to just be me. So I'm going to speak. I'm going to knock on doors. I'm going to put out all kinds of literature, which just explains who I am, what some of my ideas are, including the radical ones, and how it's time to try something a little different than what we've had.
Well, you are running as a Republican, and certainly I think that the Republican Party, like for many years, obviously, Democrats have had a majority in the legislature for over 20 years now. Okay. I mean, it was literally the beginning of President George W. Bush's first term. That's how far back Democrats have had majorities in Trenton in both chambers of the legislature. Again, it's changed a little bit. Republicans have made some gains, but specifically, Republicans this year, I think, have a great chance, William, to sort of hammer home the realities that New Jersey continues to be unaffordable. We have the highest property taxes in the country at a little over $200. Okay. It fluctuates between all up by me in LD33, all the way up in Bergen County, all the way down in LD3 to LD1, obviously, but it's the largest property taxes average in the country. Spending's out of control in Trenton. It just seems like the woke Democrats and the far left Democrats have never met a tax that they don't fall in love with. That has to change, though, William.
It's a bit of a disgrace. Our tax system is the worst in the country. And that's one of my 2 main issues being property taxes. I don't think it's just a matter of capping some of the expense. It needs to be chopped with a hatchet. I think the average property tax bill that people pay should be no more than half of what it is right now, and then cap it so it doesn't grow too fast.
Well, when we look at that formula, I mean, that seems reasonable, right? But one of the things I would argue probably is going to be a big roadblock is the fact that, our school system, again, is ranked supposedly best in the country. I know the NJEA shoots a load in its pants every year about, oh my God, we have the best schools in the country. Well, okay, we get what we pay for, but it doesn't mean that we can't rein in spending. It doesn't mean that we can't rein in property taxes. Though we can still pay for our great schools, but not be, I think, as, gluttonous as what the spending is in Trenton. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, it's really 2 different matters. Our average schools do rank very well nationally, but what does it cost to get there? The other half is the cost. It does not need to be anywhere near as high as it is, just to maintain the quality that survey demonstrated. The taxpayers are just paying through the nose for something more elaborate than it needs to be. Property tax is my number 1 issue.
Now, also, too, I know that you mentioned, obviously, during the intro here that you have some radical ideas, but it begs the question, though, again, you're running as a Republican. I know you're a fiscal conservative. You're running as someone that wants to sort of rein in spending, that wants to lower property tax, again, just wants to lower taxes altogether. So when you say radical ideas, how radical are we talking about?
Well, it's going to be things that I don't remember hearing myself on TV before. I want to have a uniform property tax rate statewide, much lower than what it is now, but uniform, so that people and businesses don't go from one town to another just to save money. The first step is actually the simplest, to make the property tax system more transparent. Right now, a great many towns, they don't levy the tax rate against the full value of your home. They take a percentage of the value of your home, and then they levy the property tax rate against that. So it can be something like $229 per $100 of 48% of what your assessed value was. I don't see any purpose to that other than to obfuscate and keep people from seeing how expensive things really are. The number one problem about property taxes is that they're very regressive. There needs to be a different relationship between how much money do you make and how much money do you pay. And up until now, property taxes are strictly based on the value of your property. Well, that can lead to a situation that actually happened to me once many years ago. Your property tax can be over 100% of your income. That'll happen if you've been out of work, you got a brand new business or something that's not making any money. No matter what your age and your medical situation may be, that's got to change.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And folks, if you just joined us right now, it's 6:11 here on the East Coast on Jersey First TV. It's my pleasure to have on with me this week LD 22 State Senate candidate William Michelson here on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. William, obviously, Republicans can run on the fact that, yes, you know what? The far left in Trenton, whether it's Governor Murphy, or far left legislators that think that, hey, we just print money in Trenton. It doesn't matter. Let's pay for all these pet projects, whether it's giving driver's licenses to illegals, taking money from the state budget, putting it into a legal fund to coddle illegals and give them legal counsel so they can't get deported. Or, again, just the idea that every pet project has to be funded. And I just think that it's irresponsible when the governor, it's interesting, when he ran in 2017, obviously, the state was going through Chris Christie fatigue. Obviously, it was an unwinnable battle for someone like Kim Godano, who I personally liked as lieutenant governor, who I thought was a good candidate. But it was funny, Phil Murphy didn't lie to anybody. He said, I'm going to raise your taxes. I want to make New Jersey the California of the East. I want to have people who make X amount of money pay their fair share. All the typical left-wing, progressive, whatever talking points. He didn't lie to anybody, and he got elected on that. And what's crazy is that in 2021, he got reelected on that exact same moniker. So it kind of begs the question. I mean, is that just a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result?
Well put. But as Governor Murphy said, if taxes are your issue, New Jersey is not your state. Part of the problem is that a too large a percentage of the population is being paid either by the state or by local governments. And there's no incentive on their part to keep it down, because if the cost of living goes up, they just give themselves raises. Probably the core of that problem is that the public employee labor unions have a little too much power. I mean, I'm not even sure there should be labor unions for public employees, certainly not for economic issues. Work conditions, that's a different story, but not fiscally. And so what happens is they pay a great deal of campaign contribution to the candidates that they think will work with them. And then what happens, those very same candidates, when they're elected, become the negotiating partners of the people that just gave the money, that are union related. There's a built-in conflict of interest there.
Sure,
absolutely. And I think it should end.
Absolutely. And listen, I mean, take the best example. The mayor of Montclair, New Jersey, the People's Republic of Montclair, New Jersey, John Spiller, is the president of the NJEA. I mean, you want to talk about a blatant conflict of interest that, again, nobody in New Jersey media is talking about. Nobody at NJ Spotlight News, nobody at the Star Ledger, nobody at Insider NJ, nobody ever scrutinizes this blatant conflict of interest. Like, how can the mayor of a town who ultimately is going to have some say over an education budget, right? Even though the Board of Ed is a separate entity, how can anyone not raise a red flag here that Sean Spiller? And again, what boggles my mind is that people think this is a guy that should run for governor in 2025. It's madness, William.
Well, the problem there is that there's never been a law that explicitly says you can't do that. You can't be a union leader and a public official at the same time. And actually, that kind of conflict of interest is personified by my opponent, Senator Scutari. He is a state senator that represents about half of Union County, and he's also the chairman of the Democratic Committee of Union County, which means that in his towns, he gets to control who gets the line as candidates, in addition to the towns where he's not the senator. I could understand it there, although party line has become an interesting legal issue recently. But they do it because nobody ever passed a law that says you can't do it. They figure they'll push the envelope and maybe the courts will do something eventually. And in the meantime, no foul, no harm.
You know what? It's interesting you bring up State Senate President Scutari, because I know that obviously after the defeat of Steve Sweeney in 2021, there was a lot of talk about, well, who would succeed Steve Sweeney as the Senate president? And a lot of people didn't expect Nick Scutari to sort of surface and go for that mantle, but he's the Senate president. He seems to be a guy that maybe isn't as adversarial with the governor as his predecessor was. We all know that Steve Sweeney and the governor did not see eye to eye on a lot of things, right? We know that Steve Sweeney, again, I have my issues with Steve Sweeney, but one of the things I'll applaud him on was sort of consolidating services in South Jersey down by his district, or even trying to advocate for that, which I think is a good thing, William. I would argue that it may not work in all parts of New Jersey, but it certainly seemed like the right track of things to do in South Jersey. Is that something, again, should you be able to defeat State Senator Scutari coming, again, should you win the primary in June and then go on to beat State Senator Scutari in November, is that something you want to consider, especially in LD 22? Because, again, the proximity of these municipalities and maybe a consolidation of services could be a good thing?
It could be a good thing, but you mentioned Senator Sweeney. My hero at the moment is Edward Durr, who beat him 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Because maybe the same thing will happen to me. I'm in exactly that position right now. Consolidation. I'm a great believer in consolidation of some municipalities, not a huge number, but definitely consolidation of a lot of school districts and other apparatus of government. We've got almost every town in the state has its own school district, even if they're just very little and they don't even have their own schools.
Sure.
And then we've got these joint commissions where a different range of towns is operating, let's say, a vocational technical high school or a program for students with mental and physical disabilities. Every single district like that has a whole bunch of employees. They have a whole bunch of officers. They're all making great money, and they all work for the NJEA.
Yeah. It's certainly a conflict of interest. I think it's also a significant hurdle, I think, that a lot of candidates face when trying to dethrone incumbents, right? Sort of in this case. Getting back to numbers here. Again, going back to 2021, you ran as a Republican. Certainly, you had an increase of 5.8% of a turnout as opposed to the previous predecessor in 2017. Again, over 20,000 votes, William. Certainly a great showing. We know that in a district where it's predominantly very, very Democrat, looking at just the numbers here once again, we're looking at 49 point, literally half the district consists of registered Democrats. Only 16% are registered Republicans, but 33% are independents. Looking back on it now, 2 years later, we always, again, I don't like the Monday morning quarterback per se, but what lessons did you take from 2021 and how are you applying them to this year's campaign?
The most interesting thing to me about that election and following it up is the statistics. We've got a lot of statistics that people can access if they feel like it. And I was looking at the individual electoral districts in some of the larger towns. There's a lot of them. Plainfield has 34 districts. Linden, I think, has even more than that. And of course, other towns much less. Well, these statistics are from the election day results only, because they didn't match up the statistics with the early voters and the voters by mail. But I carried 6 districts in Linden where we had the Republicans that had no presence on the ground whatsoever for 20 years. I carried 5 districts in Rahway.
Very nice.
And Fanwood, which also didn't have a Republican organization. Out of 7 districts, I carried 3. I chalked that up to the efforts I was making, because when I do mailings and calls and such, I try to be a little sophisticated about where to go, where to target them, where to bother and not to bother. And I think that's what I have to keep doing. There's a lot of science that goes into our elections, and I've been handling it for many, many years.
Well, let me ask you this again. We know it's a year where Republicans are coming off some wins again in 21 and in 22. Could have been better. Again, I don't want to sort of be a Karen or a Debbie Downer here where, hey, well, Fernando seems to know so much. Why doesn't he run campaigns? My job as a journalist, and as an opinion journalist, specifically as a commentator, is to sort of break down this math. Republicans have a great chance to make inroads. I'm just concerned, though, William, that the NJGOP, again, you can run on the message of, yes, New Jersey is unaffordable. New Jersey we have the highest taxes. Democrats in Trenton are just suffocating us with spending and taxes. We know all that. Okay? We know all that. It's like knowing that the Mets come October will never get it done in the playoffs. It's like those are things that are known, okay? But does the NJGOP need to do more with messaging this election cycle? I'm not saying it's on you, but do you think the NJGOP, A, has to help their candidates better this cycle? And B, do you think that the message has to change? We know what's wrong with New Jersey, but what else can we add to the messaging?
Well, one thing that I hope will change, the NJGOP barely exists as an entity. For several years now, it's been one employee in Trenton, and that's about it. Everything else is done at either the county or local level. That's got to be built up, and it's a matter of fundraising more than anything else. The new chairman since about a year ago is Bob Hugin, who ran for Senate in, 2018, and put up a very good showing. Mm-hmm. The message, well, we've been playing defense for too long, and that's got to change. There are a lot of unpleasant comments that are thrown our way. There are people that are holding it against us that they didn't like Donald Trump. 2 years ago, at least, I was still dealing with a certain amount of discontent left over from Governor Christie's tenure. He was so popular in his first term, and he managed to blow all of it in his second term. And then the part I dislike the most, some of the insults I hear, some of the people that really just don't want to talk to me at all because as a gay conservative, they think I'm a traitor. We have been listening for so long to insults from the Democratic side, some of which have maybe a kernel of truth and most of which are complete falsehoods. You yell, the big lie, you yell enough at somebody and you act shrill and you throw names at them like racist and country club conservative and things like that. And people will start to believe it. I mean, I think that's the way the Nazis got rolling. That's not going to happen here. Mm-hmm. But the big lie, it's terrible. To me, some of the comments I get, even from people in the gay community, it's like anti-Semitism. Yeah. They've been listening for so long to shrill insults that they've come to believe them.
I'm with you. And listen, I'm Hispanic, okay? I'm a Latino conservative, and I get ridiculed by so many friends of mine that lean very heavy left or far left or the progressives. I call them regressives because everything they want to do just regresses society. But also, too, like, again, the woke crowd in Trenton. And it's interesting to me where I hear sellout, traitor, Uncle Tom. No, it's that I'm thinking for myself. Again, I'm an academic, folks. So it's not like I'm just some little slapnut that doesn't know anything. I mean, again, notwithstanding the multiple graduate degrees, I mean, I've been reading up on politics since I was a kid. Okay, so I'm a well-read person. Have I always leaned conservative? No, I was a liberal in college, like a lot of kids are. But when you start reading and learning, okay, you start reading about responsible fiscal policy. And unfortunately, in Trenton, folks, for all my friends on the left, people who identify as progressives or woke or anything else, I mean, unfortunately, the facts are not on your side. So I'm constantly having to defend myself, which is fine. I can take it. But it seems like people on the left in Trenton, though, William, can't take it. And they get very defensive. And again, the blankist, the blank phobe. I get accused of being a homophobe, a transphobe, a bigot, xenophobe, Islamophobe. Like, there aren't enough phobes and lists, that people on the left hit me with on social media. That's okay. The facts are on my side, even though that they want to have their tantrums. I just go about my business with the facts. I think you do too.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being a fiscal conservative, and most of us are socially liberal, at least in this state we are.
Sure.
One expression I really love, I think it was from Bill O'Reilly: if you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 40, you have no brain.
Actually, let me just give it clarity here. Bill O'Reilly was actually quoting Winston Churchill. That was a Winston Churchill quote right during the 1940s. And
I don't think I knew that.
And I love Bill O'Reilly, notwithstanding whatever personal views people have about him as a human being. I've always loved Bill O'Reilly, the intellectual, and he's always been quoting Churchill, and I think it's always been a good mantra, William. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, well, you were getting into a topic that's of great interest to me, which is the Hispanic community. Most of them, not in Hudson County, but just about everywhere else, they're not involved in anything. In Plainfield, our Hispanic population is now up to something like 30 or 35%.
Wow.
And I've been saying for 25 years, and my Democratic colleagues have been saying it for 25 years, we've got to get some leaders from the Hispanic community. We have to get involved with that community and get them to join our side. So what's happened for 25 years, the same thing. Nobody seems to be able to find any Hispanic people that want to do that. It's never been more important than it has been this year. And I intend to make every contact I can and earn some respect in the Latino community. Actually, much the same is true in the Asian community, although they've actually moved forward greatly in the last 5 years or so to have some presence in the overall political scene.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Those are two great demographics to talk about, especially in an electorate that's changing in New Jersey, and even the census told us this. And again, I don't really care how this sounds, but New Jersey, just like the country, isn't getting blacker or whiter, it's getting browner. It's getting browner with people like me, my parents, people within the Hispanic community, the Asian community, like you mentioned as well. So it's interesting about how this is an untapped electorate that I think could really help sway Senate candidates like yourself and state assembly candidates coming up this year, William, because like anything else, Democrats seem, the far left Democrats, again, where I live in Hudson County in LD 33, like my mayor is also my state senator, but he's a working class blue collar Democrat. He's not like this far left guy that, failed high school biology and thinks there's more than two genders, that never took an economics course. I mean, this is a blue collar Democrat that I have representing the state Senate as well as the state assembly. So at least for me, I'm fortunate where I don't have to deal with sort of the far left Democrats in Trenton, like Senator, Teresa Ruiz or Nicholas Scutari or others that, again, never picked up an economics book. And again, I'm always right behind me, folks. If anybody in the legislature needs a book, those are all my books from grad school. I got, I do have an economics 101 book in there. I'll gladly mail it to you. I'll eat the postage, okay, and I'll mail it to you. But it seems like people in Trenton don't have an understanding, though, William. And I think that this year, is a great chance for Republicans to tap into an electorate like Hispanics, because Hispanics own a lot of small businesses. They were ravaged during COVID because of Governor Murphy, which we all know got it wrong on COVID. We'll see what that report says this year on that independent commission to study the governor's COVID response, which we all know isn't being released until after the election, which we're all going to find out that governors like Ron DeSantis, my boy in Florida, my boy Greg Abbott in the great freedom-loving state of Texas, they got COVID right. Not Andrew Cuomo in New York or Kathy Hochul, not Phil Murphy, not Gavin Newsom in California. It's going to be interesting. These are things I'm hoping that candidates like yourself can hammer home to Hispanics, to working-class white people, to working-class black people, because they were hurt by Governor Murphy and the far left in Trenton.
Well, there's two demographic issues going on this year, and hopefully we're going to catch up with how things have developed. The Hispanic community, I don't think they've been well served by the Democrats at all. Most of the Hispanic people around here are hardworking to the point where I don't even know most of them because they work two jobs. And they come from various countries. They are very family oriented. Yeah. They like to improve properties, and this is one of the things I do for the city, is dealing with properties that have become dilapidated over the years. And they buy them, they fix them up. It makes the neighborhood and the city look so much better. And I don't think they profit from the welfare programs that the Democrats are still putting forth. So the Republicans would serve the Latino community better than the Dems have. The other change, which is actually a fortuitous accident coming from the way Donald Trump served, is the blue collar people. They used to be solid Democrats. They are now turning into solid Republicans, and they too are not being well served by the Democratic Party. Yeah. The Democratic leaders, many of them, have contempt for blue collar America and for rural America.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
I think it's going to finally bite them in the you-know-where this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. William, before I let you go, again, you've been, as always, an exceptional guest. You're a gentleman. I'm rooting for you. Again, I think you're a breath of fresh air. It's interesting because, people on the left always like to, play identity politics. Well, how about a gay conservative in the state Senate? You want to talk about shocking the system. You want to talk about changing the game completely. Folks, check out William Michelson and his race in LD22 for state Senate. That's a race to keep an eye out for. He made tremendous inroads in 2021. This is a race, folks, that should be on your radar. I think Nicholas Scutari's got a little bit to worry about in LD22 with William Michelson. Certainly the rest of the ticket, I'm not sure if it's been comprised yet, but I'm sure that in the coming weeks and months, we're definitely going to dissect it on this show. Hopefully talk to some of your running mates, William, in LD22. I want to thank you for your time. You're always a gentleman to come on. I appreciate your faith and really your support of Real Talk with Jersey First TV. I'm rooting for you. I think you're a great candidate. You check off a lot of boxes for people that maybe sit out elections. Don't sit out this one in June during primary, and definitely don't sit it out this November during the general election. Again, William Michelson, folks, for state Senate and LD22, checks off a lot of boxes, articulate, knows his policies, knows his stuff. He's going to roll up his sleeves. He's going to knock on doors. I got a feeling, folks, this is a race to watch in 2023. Before I let you go, though, William, thank you for your time. I'll give you the last word here on Real Talk.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right, William, best of luck to you. And we'll talk again soon later this spring as election season heats up here, folks, in 2023. Have a good night, William.
Great. Good night.
Have a good night. Folks, again, great episode here tonight with State Senate candidate William Michelson. Certainly a lot that he brings to the table. I think, again, look into his candidacy. Shout out to Nicholas McCarsky and the campaign team, along with what's going to happen during this election cycle. I think, folks, it is definitely a race to watch. Again, he made inroads, folks, almost 6% up from the previous election cycle and getting over 20,000 votes. That's not something you see by a Republican candidate in that sort of cluster of Union County down in LD22. That's why it's a race to watch, folks. And this is a guy who's going to get to work. He's going to knock on doors. He's been knocking on doors. He's the guy, again, LD22, definitely a race to watch this year during this legislative cycle. Folks, before I let you go tonight, I do want to remind you, as always, check out Jersey First TV on all of our social media platforms, wherever you get your podcasts, on SoundCloud and also on Spotify. Take Jersey First with you. And folks, of course, I can't end the show without telling you about, yes, folks, you know it, of course, the swing and a miss this week in New Jersey media. And of course, when you talk about a swing and a miss, folks, there's always a lot of candidates. Okay? There's tons of candidates and news sites in New Jersey, right? Whether it's NorthJersey.com, via the Bergen Record, whether at times the New Jersey Monitor, whether multiple times, if not most of the time, Insider NJ, okay? Certainly, looking at NJ.com, but more specifically, folks, when we talk about a swing and a miss, look no further than the Star Ledger. And when we talk about the Star Ledger, of course, nobody takes us a bigger swing and nobody has a bigger miss than you know who. Oh, yes. Tommy Boy, Tom Moran, okay, from the Star Ledger. And I have to say something because, he published a column this past week, okay, which really, really got my attention, okay? I'm sure for a lot of you that read it. And before I get to this sort of irresponsible title of the column, what Tom Moran represents, folks, is, again, a symptom of a bigger problem, right? About journalists, or really propagandists, masquerading as journalists, and have had a lot to say about Jersey City Councilwoman at Large, Amy DeGise. Now, let me preface this by saying she's a friend of mine. And not once since the events of July 2022 have I piled on Amy. She's a friend of mine. We talk off the air. We've had private conversations I'm not going to divulge the contents of on this show because, again, I'm a credible journalist with integrity. That 4-syllable word. I know a lot of journalists struggle with integrity. I don't. But one of the things that, again, Tom is symptomatic of is other journalists, or again, propagandists masquerading as journalists, who've had a lot to say about what happened last July. Now, we know that Amy's case was adjudicated in court last week in Essex County. I'm hoping to have Amy DeGise on relatively soon, maybe this week, maybe next week. I'm hoping to get that exclusive because the only person I would argue that she's going to have a fair interview with is with yours truly. Okay? Not David Cruz from NJTV and NJ Spotlight News. Okay? We know we're not going to get a fair interview with Uncle Dave. Okay? We know we're not. Okay? He seems to sort of be on this binge about, be on the side of bicyclists and people who ride electric scooters, these insufferable people, okay? Because I don't like bicyclists at all. I hate them, actually. They're a nuisance. They've become insufferable, and they've become a downright inconvenience. But don't say that to Uncle Dave, because he's too busy, whether he's deciding what sandwich to eat next, okay? Or a new way to defend bicyclists whenever he can, right? Or other journalists that don't even live in Hudson County that have felt the need to sort of opine on the Amy DeGise case, right? Journalists that live in South Jersey that do nothing but smoke weed, sit at home, right? Spending their boyfriend's money because they don't really have income on their own. So they mooch basically off their boyfriend's income and have to subject us constantly to the sob story about how rough his life is, right? The sob story about rough his life is. For a guy that couldn't keep it in his pants, there's consequences to that. But again, we still have to be subjected to the sob story, right? These are the journalists, or attempted journalists, or propagandists, more like it, that will opine on social media or publish columns or enable or really embolden all these activists, whether it's some elected officials in Jersey City or the bicycle lobby or all these bicycle organizations that go to, city council with the little helmet, and they're so cute, okay? But they bring nothing to the table, okay? Tom Moran, this past weekend, wrote just an absolutely atrocious column. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see what the cover of it is. And he decides to write the column as such. Was Amy DeGise drunk when she hit that bicyclist in Jersey City? So Tom Moran writes, I'm new to living in Hudson County. Well, not all of us are happy you're living here, Tom, but I must say I'm impressed by the well-greased machine of sleaze they have built here in Jersey City after attending my first meeting of the city council on past Wednesday. came one day after Councilwoman Amy DeGise, part of the political royal family here, was found guilty of smashing her SUV into a bicyclist who had passed a red light in July. Again, folks, what we forget is that all this could have been avoided if Arthur Black wasn't, I don't know, thinking about something else and actually pay attention to street signs and pay attention to traffic signals, right? But Tom will tell you that. Tom would rather put the onus on Amy and drivers than hold bicyclists accountable, right? Just like Uncle Dave, just like Jay Lasser and all these other clowns that would rather embolden bicyclists and people who ride electric scooters that have no regard for motorists like me, but rather enable them and come down on drivers. But again, that's Tommy, that's Dave, that's Jay, that's the rest of the clown show in New Jersey media that do this, right? Now, of course, I'm going to get you, I'll give you a few more details here. Smashing her SUV into a bicyclist who had passed a red light in July, sending him careening off her windshield and flipping through the air and fleeing through the scene. Folks, I got to be honest with you. When I watched that, I actually laughed. I don't care how that sounds. Hate me if you want. I don't care. It was funny. And if you didn't laugh, then you're lying. You're blatantly lying and you're being a hypocrite. Because if you watch the video, I'll be honest with you, I was laughing. It was like, woo, when you see the car just go boom, right? And like you see Arthur, going through the air. It looked like a big meteor, like sort of like circling the earth, right? It was kind of funny. I'm glad he wasn't hurt, okay? But come on, if you watch that video, you're like, you have to laugh. A guy who clearly took a red light and almost, he's lucky he didn't get killed, but it was kind of funny though, right? Now, again, according to Tom Moran, some records would say this, maybe. DeGise waited 6 hours before showing up at police headquarters. They had a recording of the crash, saw her license plate, so they already knew it was her. But they didn't get to going to her during those hours, nor did they conduct any kind of sobriety test. Mayor Stephen Phillips' office said that there's standard procedure, and that reflects no favoritism at all. Well, again, folks, I'm not going to read you the rest of it. You can read this god-awful column. But the reason this is a swing and a miss by Tom Moran is, again, he comes off as this sanctimonious, sort of like, I have more and more superiority than you do in almost every column. This is a guy, folks, who, again, Google him. Look on muckrack.com. Look at some of the stuff that he's been implicated in, okay? If I just contact the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, I bet you Esther Suarez is going to have a lot to say about Tom Moran, okay? About an incident at the Liberty House in downtown Jersey City, right by Liberty State Park. But Tom doesn't want you to remember that. Tom would rather be sanctimonious and bash Amy DeGise, who, again, she has shown contrition. She has apologized officially. Now, again, whether or not that stops Arthur Black from suing Amy in the city of Jersey, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But Amy has shown contrition, okay? Amy has apologized sincerely, okay, and wholeheartedly. That's it. The bitching and moaning by Tom Moran, by David Cruz, by Jay Lasser, by all these other insufferable activists in Jersey City, some elected officials too in Jersey City, and all the bike organizations that think this is a travesty. I don't know what more you want, okay? She got her license suspended for a year. She received a $5,000 fine. Now, is that fair or unfair? I don't know. We're going to find out when I talk to Amy DeGise, hopefully as soon as possible. And I'll let Amy explain her side of the story. But for now, folks, it's done. This incessant need by these insufferable activists or former candidates like Kevin Bing, no relation to Chandler Bing, even though Chandler Bing, the character on Friends, has more charisma than Kevin Bing, the former candidate. But let's not, more on that on some other episode, okay? But Tom Moran, again, would like you to believe that there's some sort of favoritism here in Hudson County. I don't know that. We'll find out when I talk to Amy. And I'm sure Amy will have a lot to say after Attorney Brian Neary explained the statement of facts during the hearing last week. And again, this case is over. But Tom Moran isn't going to let it go, and so are other insufferable journalists, or more so propagandists. But again, folks, if Tom Moran is trying to raise awareness about how blatantly unfair this is, he failed miserably. Because all it makes him look like is, again, is whiny, like the rest of the journalists that have been bitching about this since last July. Okay? It's over with. It's done with. Let's stop emboldening bicyclists and electric scooters and their riders. Okay? They're an inconvenience and a nuisance to motorists like me. Okay? This would have all been avoided if Arthur Black just had some common sense and looked at the red light. But again, he's too busy being on his way for whatever it is he's doing. Again, no one has the reproductive organs to say that. I do. Fortunately, Tom Moran doesn't, and neither does the rest of New Jersey media. So, folks, when you talk about a considerable whiff on this issue, folks, look no further than Tom Moran, folks, who once again, no surprise, is indeed our big swing and a miss in New Jersey media this week here. Folks, it doesn't surprise you when it comes to Tom Moran and everybody else in New Jersey media, they continually get it wrong. But you know who doesn't get it wrong? Yours truly here on Jersey First TV. Once again, folks, that's our show for this week. I cannot thank you enough for tuning in here. Thank you to William Michelson, LD 22 Senate candidate, for joining us earlier during the show. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, check out all of our social media. Make sure you like Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on Facebook. Like us, of course, on YouTube. Subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Fernando Zone. And wherever you get your podcasts on SoundCloud or Spotify, take Jersey First with you. Just an enormous amount of talent here on the program, folks, and also on the channel. My great teammates, Elizabeth Nader, the host of the Nader Narrative, and of course, Stephen Rombolo and AJ Malilo, the hosts of Bridging the Gap. All new episodes you can check out on Jersey First by going to jerseyfirst.org/TV. Folks, I am so privileged to be working with such exceptional journalists and commentators. Brand new promo photo there, folks, for Jersey First TV. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to AJ. Shout out to Steven. Great teammates. I'm so proud to be on the Jersey First team. And folks, check out that handsome guy there. Wow, look at that, folks. Am I photogenic? I mean, Jesus. All I can say is thank God for my Gonzalez genes, because that's what you can thank right here, folks. My God, look at that photo. Oh, my goodness. That's impressive. An impressive group of 4 individuals, folks. I'll tell you right now, check me out there. Woo! I love that picture, I got to tell you. And of course, I love being with Jersey First TV. Once again, folks, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for watching us this week. Always check us out on social media. Check us out on our website, www.jerseyfirsttv.org, of course, /TV. And of course, whether it's Bridging the Gap with AJ and Steven, the Nader Narrative with Elizabeth, or yours truly on Real Talk, folks, all we're doing every single week is we're educating, we're engaging, and we're entertaining. And that's what we do better than anybody else in New Jersey media. And that's right, we do it here on Jersey First. Folks, always remember, it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid. It's Real Talk right here with Jersey First. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, and certainly the weapon of mass disruption here in Garden State Media. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, folks, saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, folks, as we'll see you next week here on February as we turn the page in the calendar. February is right around the corner. 49 days until springtime, folks. The weather's getting warmer. Thank the Lord. And we'll see you next time here, folks, on Monday night. Again, coming up here on Jersey First TV every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the best commentary and analysis you'll find about anything in Jersey politics. It's always right here with Jersey First TV. Folks, have a great rest of your weekend as always. Thank you so much for watching.